Good evening and welcome to Paxton Road TV. This is Talking Points, our weekly show where we discuss all things Tottenham. So you can take a break from the Old England viewing. We are through to the next round, but maybe not through to the round after that. Anyway, that is another story. Gentlemen, how are we doing? I'm joined by Mike-Hotspur, Darius, and we have in the house Stefan and Danny from Spurs Versus, and also Sid Spurs from Paxton Road TV as well. Are we good, gentlemen? Are we all right?
Yeah, good. On holidays, me and Danny were literally next door to each other. Yeah. We thought we'd just take a little break on our holiday to come on here and chat / moan about Tottenham's goose chase.
We know it's going to be a moan, Stefan. Let's not tell lies. We're going to be moaning here, so let's just get it off our chest. Let's do what we need to do. The title of the show, THFC, Media Agenda or Major Incompetence. We can probably lose that as a loose term. We'll probably get into some more specifics. But we've been in the news consistently for at least the last 3 or 4 weeks, and probably since Jose's gone. And even before that, we were getting a lot of media attention. And my question is, I don't know if this is by design or is it just that the things have just got so out of hand that we are just the media circus that we currently look like we are. I'm going to start with our guests, and I'm going to start with the brothers at the bottom. Stefan, I'm going to have your thoughts first. Is this a media agenda, or is this the major incompetence on the Spurs' behalf?
I think it's major incompetence. I mean, look, I do think that the media are having fun with this. I do think that the way Levy's acted, I've never seen a big club go on a kind of wild goose chase for a manager before so publicly. I've never seen. I mean, we know for a fact we've gone for 5, 6 managers, or well, at least definitely gone for about 3. But we know we've been interested in tons and not had any luck. And I think the media know that, and we're becoming a bit of a joke. And I think they're playing up to it. So I do think that they're enjoying themselves. I do think that they're using us as the butt of a lot of jokes. But that is, I think, a direct result of Levy's actions. I think he's given them something to ridicule us about. But you can tell the way they're reporting it, the way a lot of the Italian journalists are putting it on Twitter, but then also, the kind of some of the guys over here as well. The way they're reporting it is very much as like, here we go again type sort of language. But I do think, I think it's because they've not seen this before. They've not seen a top club like Spurs just seemingly have no plan and no kind of idea of what they want to do. It doesn't seem from the surface that we actually have any idea where we turn next. And that's quite worrying for us, but quite funny for them, sadly.
Thank you for that opening. I was just trying to change things around here again. Sorry, it's all changed around because it feels more comfortable now. I'd like to have those two at the top. Sorry about that. Danny, I'll come to you next. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Stefan, to be fair. I do think it's an incompetence from the club. I don't think we really have a plan. I feel like we just sort of, I mean, especially since getting Paratici in, I feel like we're going down a completely different route now. And we're going for it seems like just sort of Italian managers or Serie A managers, and that's completely different from where we started. And it's a mess. It's a shambles. I think the media, as Stefan said, they're having a bit of fun with it. It's fun for a lot of these fans and clubs to kind of laugh at Tottenham, and we are a bit of a banter club at the moment, and the media are playing up to that for sure. I do think the journalist. I'd be interested to know how much of these stories are actually true, though, because I do feel like a lot of it has been overblown. I do feel like a lot of these journalists are exaggerating some of these stories just to get likes and retweets. And it's not helped by some of the fan pages as well. I mean, this isn't aimed at you or this isn't aimed at us. I think we stay clear of it. But some of the Spurs fan pages do exaggerate stories and maybe take them out of context, and it gets fully blown out of proportion. And I don't think that's helped matters. So I do feel some sympathy for the board and Tottenham in that sense. But at the same time, like we clearly are, it's clearly a bit of a mess, and we don't have much of a plan.
And that was some of my thoughts in terms of putting this actual title together, is that it seems such a mess that it almost seems a cunning plan, to get the hits, to get the people, everybody talking about it. I look at all the fan channels. And every single fan channel that's going around these days at this moment in time is almost doubled in terms of views because people want to get the hits. People want to see what's happening, even though it's a mess. And that can only translate to the same thing for Spurs officials. They're getting hits. They're getting newsreel. Sky Sports are having a field day. Every single day there's something to talk about. So it's helping them. Talk Sport's the same. Mike, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of agree. I kind of agree with Danny saying. I think we are a banter club at the moment. I think the media are having a field day with what's going on. I agree with what Danny was saying in terms of we don't seem to have much of a plan of attack. Paratici's come in, and it does appear that all we're looking at is either Italian managers or managers that are managing in Serie A. So, is it a master plan for the click-in? I say clickbait or whatever you want to call it. I don't know, but I'm sure Ali Gold and Fabrizio Romano are loving it at the moment.
Fabrizio Romano's like this.
They must be
every single day. Fabrizio Romano's like this. Here we go. He's like that. That's what he's doing at the moment.
I can't remember who said it the other day. I don't know if it was in one of the groups, the group chats or whatever, but someone mentioned that he's probably paid his mortgage off after the last couple of months. And I was like, do you know what? It kind of made me smile, but there's probably some truth to that, maybe to a certain extent. But Levy, I mean, he hasn't helped our cause, has he? So, yeah, it's a mess. It's plain and simple, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah, utter mess.
Well, before we come to more specific, before I come to you, Darius, I just want to get Sid's thoughts, and then I'll get your thoughts on the opening gambit of a question, and then we'll go into a little bit more specifics on there. Sid, your thoughts? You'll need to come off mute, though. Right, we're going to stop. There we go. Let's start again, Sid.
Yeah.
You've got a lot to say.
I don't know what happened there.
Go on, then. Go on, Sid.
I think it's a bit of incompetency going on from Daniel Levy and the Spurs board because, all right, you've got rid of your manager, right? You've got a list of managers that you want, but this list I don't think ever existed, and he's just pulling names out of the bag. And it's like what Mike and the other Danny and Stefan were saying. Every day is a different manager being linked. Fabrizio is loving it. Alistair Gold are loving it because a new name they go chasing and getting all the background on these players and managers. We just haven't got a plan. Honestly, we don't have a plan. We've got 2 weeks to pre-season. We haven't got a plan. We haven't got a manager. What's going to happen with getting players in? We haven't got a clue who we're getting rid of. So whoever we get, I mean, I've said all along, he's waiting for the Euros to finish because it's either Martinez or Southgate he's looking at. But in terms of what's going on at the board level, they're absolutely clueless, mate. You know, it's for a big club like Tottenham Hotspur to be in this situation with 2 weeks to go before the pre-season starts. It's madness. It's absolute madness. We're the laughing stock in the whole world at the moment. Even people that have never heard of Tottenham Hotspur will now have heard of Tottenham Hotspur because it's going to be, if you go in Wikipedia and put Mickey Mouse or comedians or whatever, Tottenham Hotspur is going to come up. Yeah. It's a farce, absolute farce.
Do you think that's Levy's fault, or do you think some of it's like Romano and Gold? Do you think it hasn't helped them sort of feeding us with XYZ manager coming in and sort of getting our hopes up, and then all of a sudden they're reporting, "Oh no, that deal's off for whatever reason." I want to come
to the manager bit. I just want to get Darius's opening thoughts, and then I want to talk about the manager situation because I think that's part of this whole circus at the moment for me. What's been going on, the ups and downs of that. But Darius, just your opening thoughts about, you know, is it more by design, or is this like the media having like a bit of a laugh at us?
Okay, so if I take a devil's advocate approach to this, and I think, okay, all publicity is good publicity, I look to myself and think, why is this sort of publicity that we're sort of garnering ourselves in any sort of way positive for Spurs and for the club. And I can't give myself a reason. So I don't really see how anybody upstairs would want this sort of publicity and this sort of media news to be around Tottenham. It doesn't make any sense. Like everybody says, it shows a lack of a plan. It shows a lack of any sort of identity, any sort of positivity in the club. And it just shows that we're kind of freestyling, like you said. So I can't see how this is a positive anyway. I just think it's just proving what we all thought, that these guys haven't actually got an idea and they are just winging it. I mean, Paratici's come in. I'm going to keep saying this. I don't remember seeing Paratici links before the Conte links came. So it sort of seems like that was like a half-assed job, that we seem to got one of them. And now we can't really go back on our word because, it's going to look really bad. So I think that it's just a mess. And Paratici's come in. Levy's sort of given him all the power, which we said, and it's almost backfired in his face because he's gone and brought in, he's gone and tried to bring in Fonseca and then thrown that in Fonseca's face and gone for Gattuso, who we didn't even want in the first place, didn't even know was going to be linked in the first place. So it all seems like a mess. And I feel personally, like we're going to get lucky with this appointment of a manager. I feel we're going to stumble on a manager that we maybe shouldn't have really deserved. And it's only going to be a positive if we kind of back that manager and make these signings. But there's nothing to suggest to me. Like I said, I'm looking at Aston Villa going and bidding twice for Emile Smith-Rowe, who's on the verge of signing a contract for Arsenal. That's what you call sort of going out and making a statement for next season. They've already bought Buendia and they're going to get another creative midfielder. It's that sort of pre-planning. Look at Leicester, Patson Daka and Boubakary Samare already going through the door, ready for pre-season. That's the sort of planning that we should be thinking about. We haven't even got a manager yet. So I can't see how this is all positive and meant to be. It just seems like it's blown up in their faces, and now it's all there for the world to see, unfortunately.
So this probably neatly goes into about the manager talk anyway. So we've all, I said all of us, I certainly, and we talked about it before, we wanted some changes with it at board level. We wanted to see maybe a bit of a removal of Daniel Levy from the hiring and firing, getting involved too much in football matters. We've got Paratici. Paratici doesn't officially start till I think it's the 1st of July. The guy's already looking like he may resign before he's even started, the way things are going. What is really happening with this manager situation? Do we actually know what type of manager we actually want? Sid, what's your thoughts on the manager situation? Have you got a clue of the type of manager that we want? Do you think that the club has a clue of the type of manager? Do you think Paratici, or is he just going for his mates at the moment?
I think Daniel Levy wants a manager. My opinion is Daniel Levy wants a manager who's going to do and listen to what he says. He's looking for that cheap manager that he can get on the cheap for 2 million, 3 million a year wages. Bring him in, try and steady the ship and do what he says. Oh, boss, can I have this player? No, but you can have this one, 3 divisions down. Oh, boss, can I have that one? No, but I've got this one. Paratici seems to be, every player he's linked with is either a player he wanted at Juventus or he's sold from Juventus and they've gone somewhere else. So it looks like we're trying to get players that have been Juventus, have been players, or players that probably would have suited Conte's style at Juventus, but not Tottenham style. So I don't think he's got a plan of the players that he wants. And Levy hasn't got a clue of the type of manager that he wants. And like Darius said, we might stumble upon a manager who nobody wants, but it's the last resort and he might end up doing well. So I don't think anyone's got a clue. I'm clueless, and I think they're clueless. And
well, I'm gonna ask Daniel a question. Tottenham might not have a clue what type of manager they want. Do you have an idea of what you would like, or who you would like to see in the hot seat at Spurs?
I think at this stage, I mean, it is getting to a point we've been linked with so many managers and it's been so long that you do start to kind of, it gets to the point where you're like, oh, okay, I'd probably take someone like Graham Potter. I mean, I wasn't too keen on that kind of appointment to begin with. But at least, he's someone that can steady the ship. He's someone that has, the last few seasons has played very positive, attacking, attractive football at Brighton. And you do feel like he's the sort of guy that could, a bit like when we bought Poch in, he could build something, and he could be here for a few seasons, unlike Gattuso or even Conte to an extent where he's probably not going to be here for more than 2 years max. So I do feel with someone like Graham Potter, it's a more forward-thinking move, and it's thinking about the future, the long-term future, hopefully. And you know, it's a very attacking style of football, and that's what we want at Spurs. You know, we can't take another defensive minded manager where we're just going to sit back and, you know, play boring football. We need someone that's going to bring back some entertainment. So I think Graham Potter is a good shout. I think obviously Ten Hag as well. I feel like that one seems unlikely just because obviously he signed a new deal at Ajax. So I think probably Graham Potter's our best bet. I wouldn't have been very happy with that a couple of months ago, but at this stage, I think it's probably the best we can hope for, sadly.
I can see Mike laughing. We were calling him Harry Potter, and now we're like looking at him as being a savior for us. This is the craziness that we're going through. Stefan, is there an identity, a type of manager that you want to see? Because it appears that, you know, with the Paratici thing, which, as I said, I called for, but at the moment I'm not quite sure what is going on. But is there a clear identity of manager you would like to see? And the second part of that is, who do you think we're actually going to get in the end anyway?
So I think there is a bit of a distinction between the type of manager I want and the type of manager that will work. So I wanted, when we were linked with Conte, I thought, yeah, this could be the one. He was ambitious. He's at the height of his powers. He's not like Jose Mourinho, where you could tell he was on the decline. I thought, you get someone like that in, you give him money, he could be a huge success. But ultimately, we have to start resigning ourselves to the fact that that's not going to work at Spurs, because that's not how Levy's model is. So we have to adapt the sort of expectations, what type of manager will work. And as Sid was saying, we almost need a yes man. And it's such a shame that that's happened, that we almost have to concede that is probably the best route to take. But that is probably what's going to work. We're not going to spend loads of money on players. So we need to buy a manager, I think, that's going to work with youth. They're going to work with the squad they're given. They're trying to get the best out of the players that they have at their disposal. They play to the strengths of the team, and they work on the confidence and the personalities within the camp, because that's ultimately basically to follow what Poch did, because we can't just get a manager in and just give him loads of money to spend to play his own way. We need someone that can work with what they got. And I think Potter does fit that bill, because that's kind of what he's done. I think he's done that same thing at Brighton that Poch did at Southampton. When Poch was at Southampton and all their players were suddenly like, everyone wanted to buy their players. There was all links to the England team. Were they going to get into the England side? Liverpool was sort of raiding, and we were trying to raid them. And now the same's happening at Brighton. Everyone wants Bissouma. Everyone wants Ben White. You know, everyone wants Lamptey. And I think that's a sign of Potter's ability to get the best out of a quite a limited bunch of players. So I'd take Potter, but what I wanted was Potter to come in the day after the season ended and let him have a summer. Let him have. If you're going to get someone like Potter, bring him in straight away. Give him some idea of. Let him work with the players who are still in the camp and not at the Euros. Let him work with a DOF or with Levy to start bringing in players. Bringing him in now, even though I take it because there's not many options, I'm just sort of so frustrated that we could have just done this 2 months ago and had a 2-month kind of head start on where we are.
Darius, what's your thoughts on that? Because. And I agree with a lot of what you're saying there, Stephen, but the DOF, it should be his decision now as to who he brings in as manager. I think that's clear, and that should be the case. He might not fancy Graham Potter. Sorry, Harry Potter. I'll come to you, Mark, because I want to get your thoughts in a bit. I want to get Darius' thoughts. Is Graham Potter a Paratici type manager that you would think, or is it just now we're throwing a blanket over everybody or anybody that's left?
I actually wholeheartedly agree with pretty much everything you said there, Stefan. I think that the only reason people are kind of looking at Graham Potter as this sort of meh signing is because of the names that we were linked with, and the 3 names that we sort of were very heavily linked with at the start, which was Ten Hag, Potter, Poch, and Conte. And obviously, if you name those 3 elite managers, which I would say are elite managers, and then obviously you fall back on Potter, it does look underwhelming. But in my opinion, everything you said is so true. So he is developing talents. He's playing in a formation which I think is probably the formation to go forward for most teams in the future. I think 3-5-2 sort of covers all sort of holes in your team. If you've got a defensive problem, you have an extra man there. If you've got 2 up front, they can work together. I think that formation is almost perfect to play for a team that needs to sort of find an identity or build something. So I think that everything that Potter stands for, he does. And he also he's got I think it's a degree in I can't remember what it is exactly, but things to do with intelligence or a master's degree in intelligence, something similar to that. So he's all about sort of building a family, building a team ethos, sort of getting those players to really understand why you want to play for the team and how you have to act as a team to be able to be successful. And I understand that Brighton didn't do as well, but if you look at the stats, that defensively they were decent, they were pretty good, and offensively they were creating chances. They, like everybody knows, they just couldn't finish them. So for me, Graham Potter would probably be the best option. I always said, if you look at a tweet, I always said Graham Potter or Eric Ten Hag for me, because I think that they both would do the same sort of role. And if you look at it, Graham Potter would probably be the safer and cheaper option, since one, maybe the compensation fee at Brighton might not be as much. I know he signed a new contract. And two, he's got a knowledge of the Premier League and he's done well against big teams. I mean, Pep's always commenting and praising the way that he plays against those Brighton teams. And I always go back to the Chelsea game as well last season, where they really should have beat that Chelsea team. I think they were the better team on that day. So for me, I think, Stefan, you're right. Graham Potter is probably the best of a bad bunch. But again, is it going to happen now? And with 2 weeks till pre-season and no sign is potentially being made, and does it really look like that's going to help this season? I don't know if the season's going to be successful regardless of who comes in. That's my fear now.
I think we're might be doing Graham Potter a bit of a disservice saying he's the best of a bad bunch, because he's actually doing quite well at Brighton, given the resources that he has. He's just, it was underwhelming at the start of the whole process after Jose. But now, the more I think of it, the more you guys are saying he is that person that may be coming to steady the ship. My concern is that he's not necessarily the fit for Paratici, given what I've seen the manager's Paratici's been going for. Yeah. Mike, just your thoughts on the manager situation. I know we was ridiculing the Graham Potter early doors. What's your thoughts now?
To be fair, I do like, and I mentioned this in previous shows, I actually do like Potter. I do like Graham Potter. I think he's a great tactician. And the only reason Brighton find themselves where they are is because they've never had a striker who can bang in sort of your 20 goals a season to see them sort of further up the table. But I think when I last looked at the table, I'm sure Brighton had or as good as defensive record as the likes of Wolves and maybe Arsenal, who are obviously mid-table. So where they were, if they had a goal scorer, then you probably would have seen them jump up to sort of mid-table. But I as I say, I do like Potter. I think he could probably be a great fit for Tottenham in terms of how he brings on the youngsters that come through, develops them, and turns them into good players with bags of potential. Like you've mentioned the names Lamptey, etc., Basoma, but I think, given the fact that we've been linked with the names that we have, the elite managers, it is underwhelming when you go from them to Potter. It's just natural, isn't it? But I personally, if it was Potter, I wouldn't be too disheartened with that. He knows the Premier League. As I say, he's a great tactician. I mean, he proved it when Tottenham played Brighton back last season. He knew exactly where our weak spot was, and he exploited it very well. And obviously, they came away with points.
Are we stable enough as a club, though, to bring in someone like Graham Potter, expecting him to deal with the situation? Because the way I look at it is someone like Jose Mourinho, who is the type of person that you bring in to kind of shake things up, to kind of get players into line. I know that he was probably waning, he was on the downside of his career, but he was still a winner and very far from a yes man, but he seemed to toe the line. Graham Potter will be that man, but is it going to be that, the players will see him coming in and it's like, this guy, I can almost take the piss sort of thing? Would it be a match made in heaven, or is it just going to end in tears?
Well, the thing you could go back to that is, what is the alternative right now? Who? I mean, Conte's out. He's gone. He's not going to come.
Pep Guardiola.
Well, anyway, we're going to get Guardiola if Ali steps up and reveals those photos to him of his daughter. So he's out the window. I just don't see a realistic alternative. Ten Hag, Harry Redknapp. This is the thing, though. We're even mocking ourselves, aren't we? We just haven't got. Me personally, I don't know who would be a suitable alternative. I think we're stuck. I honestly do. And also, as well, whatever manager that does come in, really truly, like Stefan said, we should have given him a fighting chance and brought him in early doors. But we're going to get him in at just the start of pre-season. I mean, you're throwing him in the deep end, whoever it is. So money talks, I suppose.
Just before we end this manager conversation, I'll ask you all, who do you definitely not want to see as manager? Who do you definitely not? Because I can tell you,
if I see a waistcoat in that hot seat, I'm not watching next season. That's all I said.
Don't want to see Gareth Southgate. I personally don't want to see Nuno Espirito de Santo, whatever you want to call. I don't want to see him. I just don't want to see that type of manager there. Not because I don't think I just don't. No, Gareth Southgate. I don't want to see.
No chance.
Martinez. Do not want to see him.
I don't want Martinez.
Is there anybody else on that list, lads?
Yeah, I don't. I'm looking at the comments as well, and I know Rafa's name has come in, and he's got that winners kind of thing behind him. But I don't want to see Rafa Benitez either, because I think that's just a return to a style of football we need to just get away from. I think, as far as I'm concerned,
it sounds bad, but we do need. It really does sound bad, and I know that we all want to win, but at the end of the day, I really fell out of love with watching that team under Jose Mourinho. It was sort of like it felt like a job. Felt like I was going to work. I had to watch Spurs because it was my job. I would get in trouble if not. So for me, to start getting those fans back on board and maybe start finding that love between the fans and the club again, maybe that football is the key, is the gel. And if you can get a manager who can play a sort of decent style of football, but also maintain a decent defensive, do you know what I mean? A decent defensive shape and record, then it sort of seems like a no-brainer. And there are a few managers out there that are really filling that can fill that void. But again, it's the competency of this board. I don't think that they actually know what they're doing. And I don't think that Levy really wants to take the blame for this, which is why I feel like all the power has gone to Paratici. So it seems like we're just rolling dice at this point. Honestly, I can't lie to you guys.
But you can't underestimate quickly just how important it is. I was going to say, you can't underestimate how important it is to bridge that gap between the fans and the club again. Because Darius, you're right. I hated Spurs last season, and I'm above anything else, above trophies, above success. I just want to enjoy watching Tottenham again. But that's my primary concern right now.
Is there anybody you definitely don't want to see, Danny? Before we move on from this.
I mean, I think we've mentioned them all. To be fair, I think Benitez, Southgate, Martinez. In terms of
Eddie Howe,
Eddie Howe? I wouldn't be totally against Eddie Howe. I think he's actually quite an underrated manager. I think he did a pretty good job at Bournemouth. I think we could do a lot worse. I'd rather Potter if it's between those two, but I think he'd be okay. I think the one manager I'm quite surprised we haven't been linked with is Lucien Favre, who's linked with Crystal Palace. I'm quite, because he's got a very good record. He got watching Gladbach and Hertha Berlin and Nice into the Champions League, and then did pretty well at Dortmund as well. So I'm surprised he hasn't been linked. It looks, if Crystal Palace get him, that's a really good deal for them.
You could say he was unfairly sacked at Dortmund as well, couldn't you? I don't really see why he got sacked at Dortmund. He was doing all right. So I agree with that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to move on to the next topic here on this whole thing. But before I do so, please, if you're watching, hit that like button. If you could, send us any comments as well. Thank you for all the comments that have come through so far. Any other questions you want to ask, please put them down in the comment section. We'll do our best maybe to get to them. We obviously can't get through everything, but hit that like button. Also, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. You can get all our content available to you when we do it. Right, okay. Harry Kane situation. It looks like to me that Harry Kane's got something on his mind, which he potentially could do. There's a lot of people saying that he's not being played to his strengths, blah, blah, blah. But Harry Kane looks like he's not playing to the Harry Kane that we know, particularly for Spurs. Do you think that this whole situation is being handled well by Spurs? Is Harry Kane looking like he's a player that's playing, is Harry Kane looking like a player that's not going to be playing for Spurs next season? What's your thoughts on the whole Manchester City, bid that they supposedly made, 100 million, blah, 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 blah. What's your thoughts on the whole Harry Kane situation and how the media have handled it and how Spurs have handled it as well? Danny, I'll come to you first.
I think, to be fair, I think 100 million as a starting bid is quite impressive, firstly. And it does concern me because I thought they would come in with a much lower one, and especially if it includes players. I do think the players that could potentially be included, looking at that Man City squad, I think there's probably only about one or two names that would realistically join Spurs. Maybe like Benjamin Mendy, potentially like Nathan Ake. I know we could do with a centre back, and he's had quite a poor first season at the Etihad. So, you know, I could maybe see that one happening. But in terms of like the rest of that squad, it's we've got to be realistic. Sterling's not going to come. Laporte's not going to come. So, you know, it's not as good a deal as maybe it looks. I know a lot of Spurs fans on Twitter are saying, "Oh, well, yeah, let's accept it. Let's get these stars in." It's like that's not going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen with Harry Kane. I think we obviously don't want to sell him. I think we'll reject that bid for sure. We're always going to reject the first bid anyway. And he hasn't helped himself at the Euros. I don't think that will make a huge difference. I think Man City will come back in with a better bid. It just depends how much power he's got, really. I mean, if he really puts up a fuss and, you know, stops going to, I mean, I remember Gareth Bale stopped going to training, didn't he? So he kind of forced that move. I'm not sure if Harry Kane is going to do that. But if he really, really wants to leave, that might be his only choice.
Yeah. Mike, do you think Harry's looking like a player that he's wanting out of Spurs, or is it just a bit of fatigue that he's not performing for England? I think there's a lot of factors going on. I think he's probably. I don't think anybody's shielded from what's happening. So all these players know what's happening. He's probably getting whispers in his ear. I think there's a bit of fatigue in there. He played this out of his skin this season for Spurs, and he's being asked to do the same. And he's captain. It's a lot of pressure on him. We're playing at home as well. Is it that it's just everything's catching up at once, or is there something more in his performances for England, which then stems into the thought process that he may be on his way out come the end of this summer?
First and foremost, as a striker, I don't care. I personally wouldn't care so much about how he performs. All I'd want from my striker is that ball hitting the back of the net. And I don't think Kane's. You could easily argue that Kane hasn't had the service to put the ball in the back of the net. I know. When a striker's off or not scoring goals, everyone analyses their performance. Oh, he looks a bit leggy, or he's looking lethargic. Oh, he's probably got a lot on his mind. Oh, the Tottenham saga, if he wants to be in or out, is probably playing on his mind. But I think when he gets the opportunities, I still think he'll put the ball in the back of the net, and then everyone's opinions and thoughts on Kane will be like, oh yeah, he's fine, he's top class, he's world class, he's playing out of his skin, and that's how I think. I think the situation is. Obviously, there's probably things happening in the background, but any talk of transfers, I don't think that's even hitting Harry Kane's little world that he's in at the moment. I think he, as he said, he'll talk about transfers, his career, where his sort of future lies after the Euros is done. I don't think any player would try and sort out a transfer during a major tournament. It'd just be mad to even sort of enter such discussions. So I don't think. I don't think there's. To be fair, and again with regards to the Man City bid, I don't think Harry Kane he may be aware of it, but I don't think he's even been bothered about that. I honestly think he's just been focusing on England. He's too much of a professional to let sort of outside interferences sort of affect his performances. So I'm personally, from a performance perspective, I'm not too worried. As long as when he does get the chances, he hits the back of the net, then I think all is good there. So yeah.
Before I come to both you, Stefan and Darius, just this comment here from Destroyer61. Jesus may join us. I think we've got more chance of Jesus Christ joining us than Gabriel. Because
I wouldn't want Sterling. I wouldn't want Sterling at Spurs.
No. Stefan, what do you think? What's your whole thoughts on the Harry Kane situation anyway, in general?
Well, I mean, in general, I was, like Danny said, I was a little bit worried by an opening bid of over 100 million. If that's what it was, obviously, we don't really know the ins and outs, and it could have been 85, I've read, with add-ons. But I always hoped their opening bid would be like 60. And if I saw a £60 million bid, I'd be like, we're not going to meet in the middle here. But if they're coming in with 100, it does worry me, because I do think we'd sell for about 120, maybe 130 in a post-COVID world. But in regards to his England performances, I mean, he's not been amazing. I'm not going to pretend that Harry Kane's been turning on the Euros. He's not been at his best. But I don't think that's to do with the City speculation. I think that's to do mostly with Southgate's in-game tactics and the lack of fluidity of the front four for England, the lack of chances created. I mean, yesterday he actually looked quite good first half, and then the second half, England had a 0 XG. You know, I saw that there wasn't even a single attempt really that looked like it was. And that wasn't a team that tried to create chances for its forwards. So I'm not worried about Kane on that front. And I think if he does stay, I think he would be brilliant, because I think he's a brilliant professional, and he will always give 100%. Yeah. But when I came on here last time about 3-4 months ago, I remember you asked me if Kane will go, and I said no, I don't think he'll go. I don't think City will pay the price. But I can't hand on heart say that now. I've got a bad feeling that this one could go ahead, which is not good.
It's not looking good at this moment in time. The fact that City have put a bid in, supposedly. Darius, what's your thoughts on the Harry Kane situation?
First of all, 0.00 XG is genuinely criminal. Like, that is criminal offense. And if that is what we're having to like even consider being part of our manager search, then boy, we are in trouble. But on Harry Kane, I think Harry Kane's in a crossroads in his career. I think he's got a choice to make. I think it's either career glory, so your titles, your Champions Leagues, your trophies, or that Tottenham legend status. I think he's not going to get both of them. And I think in order to get the career glory, he's going to have to tarnish his Tottenham legend status by handing in a transfer request, because I just don't think with 3 years left on your deal, you're really going to get any sort of hearsay, any sort of choice in what, do you know what I mean? Unless the money comes in.
Do you guys think he's going to hand in a transfer request? Do you think he'd be forced to do that?
That would be massive for me. That would be huge. I don't think he will, because I don't think he wants to ruin that relationship with Tottenham and the fans in the club. But that, for me, if he does that this season after the Euros, then like that shows to me that he's serious. Like, he really doesn't want to be here. I don't really think he's going to do that. I think he'll just wait another year and then go when there's 2 years left on his deal, and he'll probably still have a decent season. He'll probably, a lot of fans will, even if we do well this season with Harry Kane still there and then he leaves to go to City, like, the fans won't be as mad at him as opposed to if he leaves now in the situation.
I'm not mad at him now. If I'm honest with you, I'm not mad at Harry Kane now.
No.
Because Harry Kane, as I said, he's done everything he can do possibly. We're in the worst situation in terms of where we are as a club. Why would he say to himself, 100%. I'm going to give it just this one more year? There's no reason for him to do that. And we have no reason to say, Harry, you owe us. What does he owe us?
At the same time, contracts are contracts at the end of the day, bro. You signed a 6-year contract. I understand you're signing a 6-year contract to look after yourself. That's a good point to make. But at the end of the day, you've signed that 6-year contract. There's 3 years left on a deal. You've wanted to kind of bring out this angst and this. I don't know how to explain it. It's not that he's against Tottenham. It doesn't seem like he's against Tottenham. It just seems like they're not matching the ambition that he wants. And he's clearly now seeing that he wants to go. He's chosen this year for it to kind of make it public. I know he's not officially said that he wants to leave, but we all know what he's really feeling after that interview with Gary Neville. I just think that timing is very important, and with 3 years left on your deal, you don't have a choice on what to say. If you look at Mbappe, he's got a year left on his deal. He can control a lot of what he wants to do now. Harry Kane really doesn't have that sort of power. If this was next year and we were talking 2 years left, he would be the one who's holding the cards. He'd be like, okay, if I don't leave, then you're going to lose out on money. I don't think that the amount of money that we can garner for Harry Kane will drop that drastically from this year to next year. So I think it's either he kicks up trees and he pulls grass, or he's not going nowhere.
And I know what you're saying about the contract thing, and he can be held to ransom. However, the player does have that power. The reason he has that power is Harry Kane doesn't have to put in the effort like he has been putting in. He could just play a normal Harry Kane season if he wanted to and probably still score 15, 20 goals. But the fact is, we've all seen Harry Kane has been, and I think I've mentioned this to you before, Darius, he's always in the last 2 to 3 years had an injury, but he's always wanted to rush to get back at the detriment of the club. Champions League final being one, obviously the final we had in the league final this season as well. I don't see him doing that same thing if he gets injured again. Why would he? Why would he?
World Cup.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
he can't afford to, because there's a lot of talented youngsters coming through now in England, and Kane can't afford to sort of take his foot off the pedal and slow down and show that not too fast. I'll just sit it out, because his England position will be under threat.
The thing is, Mike, I would believe you, and if I didn't see what Southgate was doing this Euros. I mean, Henderson's not played since January, February. Maguire's half injured, and these guys are coming over players who are fully fit. So I see your point, but with England, it just seems like England just pick players based on the name, and Harry Kane's the captain. I feel like even if Harry Kane had one ankle, he'd still be the first name on the team sheet, unfortunately.
It's only because Southgate, though. I mean,
If he's not there, it could be a different story. Definitely,
he won't be there after these Euros. He'll be gone.
Hopefully.
I don't think it's Kane's personality, though. I mean, Kane, he's always been someone that had to work for what he's got. He's not Cristiano Ronaldo that had this talent, or like Messi, and these players that had their ball and it's like magic in their feet. But he was a chubby kid at Leyton Orient that kind of he's had to work harder than everyone else to get to where he is. I think he's shown his personality would see him through. I honestly believe, I'm not just saying this, but I do believe that if he did stay, he would be the same Harry Kane we've seen all along. But as Darius said, if he did stay this summer, he's 100% leaving next summer. 100%.
100%. And we'll lose out on money. And the final point I wanted to make was just on Eden Hazard. And if you look at Eden Hazard, he sort of had a almost injury-free career at Chelsea. And then as soon as he went to Real Madrid, it felt like to me his body sort of gave up on him. And I don't know if he kind of felt like he got his dream move and that's all he needed to do. But for me, Harry Kane seems like he's one injury away, and I don't know if it's obviously because of the fitness. Obviously, he played a lot of games this season, but he doesn't look quick. He doesn't look sharp. And I don't know if that one injury could really just curtail his entire career. And it might just be the one that he's never recovers from properly again. And I know it's bad to look at players from a business perspective and put a price on their head. But if you look at Harry Kane now and you get 150 million, or potentially you get 100 million, and a younger player who could potentially be sold for more, do you want to turn that down and then maybe take a 70, 80 million next season for Harry Kane? I don't know what Levy's mindset is, because he wants to go and do things and win things, but I don't see us winning anything in the next year. So if you can get 150 million pounds for Harry Kane, then would you not kind of want to do that? I don't know. I'm not sure.
So Danny, if you had 150 million on the table, would you take it now to sell it?
I mean, we're certainly, we're not going to get a better offer than that. As you said, like next season, that could be halved. And especially if he does take his foot off the gas and isn't putting in the 100% effort. I think he, just going back there quickly to what Steph said as well, I don't think there's too much risk of that happening. I think he will put in the effort required. He'll want that move to Man City or a top club, so he's not going to risk having a season where he gets 10, 12 goals rather than 20, 25. But 150 million at this stage in time, I think normally I'd be like, yeah, sure, take it. But it's just the worry that we're not going to spend it wisely. We're not going to.
It's a very good point.
Yeah,
also,
that's the concern.
It's this summer as well, isn't it? I just feel like we're a sinking ship. To sell Kane and to be able to do an actual successful rebuild, we need to be on a steady ship. We need at least a year of, let's say, a Graham Potter who comes in, gets the confidence back in the camp, brings in a few youth players. Like after Poch's first season, the way he kind of got rid of the kind of bad eggs. We need that sort of season, and then we can sell Kane. We sell Kane now. I mean, he's like our only lifeline. It's like. It's just not. It would turn a chaotic summer into.
We won't score. We'll struggle to score goals if we get rid of Kane. Who is there that we could bring in that will get that sort of volume of goals?
We'd have to bring two.
You'd have to get two players. You'd have to get two players. Yeah.
It will be like the season after we sold Bale. We massively struggled that following season.
Sign 8 players and only one turns out to be a good one.
Yeah.
It's painful, isn't it? I mean, me personally, I wouldn't take the 150. I wouldn't sell him, just because if we sell Kane now, we won't finish top half.
Well, this is coming into my last point for today's topics anyway. 2 weeks till pre-season, roughly 2 weeks. How is all of this uncertainty going to translate into, one, our summer transfer window, and two, into performances on the pitch? Because it's not looking great at the moment, and all the talk around Harry Kane, I know we've dealt that now with the manager and all the rest of it, but just in general, how is this all going to translate into players coming to our club, and then how we actually perform next season? Mike, I'll come to you first.
Me first. I honestly don't know. Ask one of the other guys at the moment. I need time to think about this one. You put me on the spot. Ask Darius first.
Darius first then, and then I'll come to the brothers down below. Darius.
I don't want to go off on a negative tangent, but I can't see how next season's any. Like, I really don't see how next season is going to be good in any way. Like, it's been chaos from last season. I honestly thought we'd have a little bit of a break. We might sort ourselves out and we might be able to sort of look forward. Even if we lost Kane, we'd get a manager in. We'd sort ourselves out. I remember when we sacked Jose right back when we were in the final, and I was talking about Nagelsmann coming in. I was like, yeah, Nagelsmann will come in. It's cool. That's who they wanted before. And now we're like stuck with Martinez and Southgate. And it's like, I just don't see, after everything that's happened in this last 2 months, how next season can go well. I think that it might not be as bad as people think. We might not like finish 10th, 11th, 12th, but I just think it's going to be another 8th, 9th, maybe place finish, and maybe a run in a cup and a semi-final exit. It just seems like another one of those seasons. And if we can get lucky and we can potentially fall on a Graham Potter or a Ten Hag or a manager like that, and we can build for maybe the season after, then I might be a little bit more optimistic. And if the football is good, then I will at least be able to watch better football. That's one thing that I will be able to tolerate. Do you know what I mean? At least we won't be finishing 7th and 8th playing Jose Mourinho style football. But apart from that, honestly, looking at all the teams around us, just even Arsenal, I'm seeing that Ben White's being very heavily linked to Arsenal, and a lot of Leicester, Aston Villa, Liverpool, all signing players around us. And it's like, how can I even be optimistic when this is happening? So for me, it's going to be another one of them, 6th to 8th, 6th to 9th, and maybe a semi-final in the cup. And if we can win something, great if we do, but I'm not gonna get my hopes up. You're muted, mate. You're muted.
Bloody did a sit there. I was on mute, chatting away. Sorry about that. I could hear the resignation in your voice, Darius. It sounds as if everybody's feeling very similar. Danny, how is this all going to translate onto the pitch for next season, given the chaos that we've got currently?
Yeah, it's very concerning. Yeah, especially as the transfer window. Well, I don't think it closes until about game week 4, maybe. So is that right? I might be wrong about that.
So, yeah, I think so.
You're about right.
Yeah. So presumably, I can't imagine we're going to sell Kane before the season. Knowing Levy, if it does happen, it's going to be deadline day. So all that's not going to help the team, because that's going to be disruptive in the dressing room for sure. And it will undoubtedly affect performances. We don't know who the manager is going to be. As Darius said, Villa are making moves. Arsenal are linked with guys. I mean, I don't think the only player I've seen us linked with is Lamptey and Max Aarons as well. And that's only because
centre back as well.
Anderson, to be fair. But this is just the right back especially is only because Aurier is pretty much a guaranteed departure, right? But in terms of other targets, we don't know yet because we need to see what the new manager thinks. So it's just a complete
we've got
mess.
So many players to get out the door as well. That's the problem for me as well.
Yeah.
Not only have we got to get players in, but we've got a whole load of players to get out, and this all needs to be sorted out. Stefan, what's your thoughts about the season coming?
I can't lie to you, lads.
I'm not looking forward to what you're going to say now.
No, I'm a bit worried, man, because we're not. You know how we're all aware that this is a shambles. This managerial chase is a shambles. We all know the club has no plan. The players know that. That's what worries me. Is that we all know that we have no idea which direction we want to go in, what type of manager, which style of football. The players are reading the same reports we are. They're all following Ali Gold, and they're seeing the same stories that we see, and they're seeing the club getting knocked back. They're seeing the club just embarrass themselves on a public stage. And I'm really worried about how this translates onto the pitch. And it's just so frustrating to me because when we got rid of Jose, I'm quite a big fan of that first opening game of the season. New kit, new manager, new players, new start. And God knows Tottenham needed something new because last season was one of the worst seasons. The last 2 seasons have been horrible as a Spurs fan. And I was so excited about this new start. And I feel so despondent and I'm so annoyed that even our fresh start has been tarnished. So I'm feeling quite down about things, but it is quite hard to say because we haven't got a manager. If we bring in a good manager, we have a good transfer window, I will change my tune. But they're big ifs, aren't they? I'm sorry.
You got Man City the opening game of the season as well. That's the worst thing. This is what I've got to think about. We've got the best team that we could possibly play, and we have got the most shambolic pre-season.
What are you saying, guys? Kane hat-trick against us on the opening day.
Mike, have you had a chance to think about it now? Because you're going to have to give your thoughts as well. Because I'm going to be in tears soon. Stefan's done my head in now. He's really done my head in.
The last time on this.
Yeah, I was trying to feel optimistic, but Stefan, you've killed it, mate. I to be fair, I do echo what Stefan says. I am worried. It all depends, and this for me, it all depends on who we bring in as a manager. That will kind of set the tone as to what my expectations will be for next season, and obviously, kind of, I suppose it would tell us quite a bit about what we can expect on the pitch from these players, from a tactical perspective, from who we potentially might see sort of playing or going out the door, potential targets, etc. Yeah, I'm not confident.
I think Cody makes a really good point there in the comment, doesn't he, about the next manager's kind of starting off in a bad situation because everybody's been so excited. The Conte situation for me is what's going to really just derail everybody's thoughts, because if Conte wasn't linked, I don't think people would be too mad at a lot of the signings or a lot of the managers we were linked with. The expectations are so high now, and it's like you were negotiating with him, so you were willing to pay these wages, and then you go straight from like a 15-17 million euro wage to a Fonseca who's on 3 million. It just seems like the next manager who comes in is going to kind of be judged before he even does anything.
Because at the moment, our expectations could be that low that if we get any manager of any sort of song, we might be just, oh my God, it's so, and he might not even be that great, but it might be just that we're just going to jump onto it and he might just become the savior. That's what I'm a little bit concerned of. We will get someone like Graham Potter, who at the beginning of all this process, we were like, Graham Potter. But now it's kind of like, oh, Graham Potter, he could be our savior. And it could be just that whole Stockholm syndrome sort of thing. We are really going to be in that position if we're not careful. If we don't get a manager sorted soon, we're going to have a lot of problems for the whole of the season coming ahead.
But it goes back to that point. Whoever you bring in, give that person a fighting chance, and we should have been bringing them in. We should have had it all tied up and done and dusted the moment the season
before the Euros, really and truly.
100% before the Euros.
Do you remember? Sorry to interrupt you, Mike. Do you remember when they said about flipping trying to get a manager before the end of the season? And I look at that now, and it's just a joke. It's honestly a joke. Yeah. I remember when they said it's a joke. It's a joke. Sorry, carry on, Mike.
I was just going to say, whoever comes in, really and truly, they should have just been brought, like you say, before the Euros. They're going to be up against it, regardless of whoever it is. And if you've got someone coming in like Potter, who may not have the experience or the know-how of maybe the elite managers who have been at the top clubs for X amount of years, the pressure is going to be on them even more, because the first, if we don't win, or if we have a bad, say the first month, if the first month's bad, that manager, whoever it's going to be, is going to be under a whole world of pressure.
I'm not you as well, Mike. No, we're not doing it. Not Stefan and Mike. I'm not ending the show like this. This is not going to. I'm not doing it.
Sorry, Sam. I'm going to say one more thing. We do have Chelsea, Arsenal, and City in our first 6 games.
My God.
But if the manager comes in, if we get the dead wood out, bring in a few players that he wants to come in, it could be a blessing in disguise, and he could surprise everyone. If it just depends on, I suppose, where your thoughts are, and I suppose if the fan base gets behind the team and the new manager, whoever it might be, and be like, well, actually, come on, we've got to give him a bit of slack, because he's come in at a time whereby he's up against it regardless. Then you just might.
That's one thing. That's one thing I will say. Actually, on that opening day against Man City, I'll be in the stands singing my heart out, and whoever it is needs to get the full backing. Needs to get the full backing of the fans. Let us know. We might be disappointed. We might not. We might be going into the season feeling despondent, as we so clearly are, all chatting about it today. But ultimately, when we all turn up to the lane on the first game of the season, we just got to sing and just hope for the best. And that's all we can do. And I feel like we will do that. I have faith that we will back the man in the dugout.
We back the team. We back the team. And we back the club. And we have.
I don't know how long for, but
how many pre-season games have we got? It can't just be this.
2 confirmed at the moment, but I'm pretty sure there'll be more, won't there?
Yeah,
there'll be more low-key ones that you probably you play some real low-key teams, but the prominent ones like the Arsenal and the Chelsea ones, it's going to be key.
It's important.
100%.
Okay, so before we go, Stefan, Danny, where can people find you? I'll come to you, Stefan, first.
Well, obviously we're the Spurs versus team, so at Spurs versus on Twitter, which is our podcast, which obviously you've been on, Sam. But if you want to listen to me just talk more rubbish about Tottenham and also films, which I work in, it's at Stephen Pape 29.
Danny, you got yourself.
Yeah, just echoing what Stefan said there with the Spurs versus channel. You can look it up on all major podcast platforms. You can find us. I mean, we haven't done any episodes for a few weeks now. We're having a bit of a summer off, but we'll be back for the new season.
I don't blame you, mate.
Yeah, we need a year off, to be honest. Yeah, we'll be back for the new season. So yeah, if you check out the Spurs versus Twitter, that's the best place to find us.
Fabulous, thank you. Thank you all the guys, girls for watching. Please hit that like button and hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. And thank you all very much for your comments. I'd like to thank Stefan and Danny for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. And as always, Mike and Darius, it has been a pleasure. As always, I just hope we get this whole thing sorted out in terms of a manager very, very soon. I would like it to be done tomorrow. It is not going to be done tomorrow. I know that. But surely in time.
Just don't be Southgate. Just don't be Southgate. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, gosh. We'll have to do another show. But I'm sure when the...
Oh, God.
What are you going to say? What are you going to say, Mike? What are you going to say?
If he's successful, you know he's coming to Tottenham.
He's not coming to Spurs. He can't come to Spurs. He can keep that waistcoat.
I'll personally make sure that doesn't happen. I'll personally make sure that doesn't happen.
No, I'm not having it.
Mate, I can... if he wins the Euros, you know Levy's going for him. 100% he's going to go for him.
He's not winning the Euros. I'll tell you that much. That's
I
think England will want to keep him if we win the Euros.
Exactly. There's no way England can let him go. So he's not coming to Spurs that way. So either or, he's not coming to Spurs. So I think I'm happy with that as a fact. I'm going to stick it on record. He's not coming to Spurs.
Don't say that because you know what's going to happen. Going to jinx it now. We've got our manager now.
No, Mike, stop it. Right, we're going now. We're off. Thank you very much. Been a pleasure as always. And look out for the